Hey guys, what's up? It's Anthony here from the neighborhood. You know, it's your show every Saturday at 11 a.m. on Latino Mixx and so many more places. And here we are once again in our studio in Brooklyn. I'm so happy to go ahead and bring this studio to you guys. I'm wearing my sweatshirt today for more than one reason because I obviously have a super cool guest. I've got a guest who's talking about bodegas. So if you guys have been to a bodega before and you've shopped at a bodega, you already know that bodegas are a corner, not just a corner of the block, but a cornerstone of our lives. Especially growing up here in the city, there was bodegas everywhere. My father owned a bodega, so much history to go into that. And I want to tell you about her journey on getting there. So there's a lot to cover in this program. And if you guys are not checking out this program and you haven't heard about it, well, you're not from the neighborhood. And you should be telling your friends in that community to come out here and talk to us about it. So if they've got an amazing story from the neighborhood on any social media platform, reach out to us and tell us about it. Nominate them, and let's hear about the story about where they grew up and who have they become. So there's a lot to cover, and you guys, you've seen the shirt? You've seen the shirt, Brooklyn. If you like it, go to shop.fromtheneighborhood.com and represent your neighborhood. We've got a lot to cover in this program. There's so much fun we're going to be having, and I can't wait to bring her onto the show. So with that, folks, let's get the energy going. I got my man Triple R on the beats, and he's going to throw in a quick jam for you guys so you guys can get started, and that's how we're going to do today on this show from the neighborhood.
De regreso con Anthony from the neighborhood.
All right, folks, so we're back to the program here, and as I promised you, we have someone here who's been really involved with bodegas. She is the producer of a program, which I can't wait to tell you about. But first, let me define what is bodegas. Bodegas, if you don't know, and you haven't heard of the term, it's actually the cornerstone. The corner store is not just a regular store. It is the store in which everybody would go to. It is your community hub. Not only the food, not only the great sandwiches. I mean, everybody talks about chopped cheese and all that sort of stuff. It's where you got everything. You even got the news of what's going on in the block. So the corner store was your cornerstone in your life. Like I said, it was the hub. And this person here is responsible for putting things together. I'm really happy to bring her on board. I want to tell you about her story because we're getting into the story on these neighbors, where they came from and what was their inspiration, what made them want to develop these sort of programs, these sort of missions, these companies, these things that they're doing. Well, I have her right here. Everybody say hello to Evelyn Brito. She's right here to my right. Evelyn, say what's up.
Que lo que, mi gente. Thank you for having me here.
Well, it's a pleasure to have you on the program. I'm glad to bring your story to light. There's a lot that we've been trying to do here, which is bring out the awareness about what our neighbors are doing. And I'm really happy that you're working with bodegas specifically.
Yes.
Bodegas are near and dear to me.
Oh, yeah.
So tell me, first off, I like to start with where you started. Like, where did you open your eyes? Where were you born? Tell us the history. Go, Evelyn, day one.
Day one. Well, back in 19. Well, I was born in Brooklyn, New York, to Dominican parents, specifically Murder Ave.
Wow.
On the, oh my goodness, I can't believe I forgot the name of the street
Brooklyn
I was
represent. There you go.
born. Gate Ave.
Gates Avenue
yes,
and
Gates
Myrtle?
Avenue and Myrtle.
Wow. So you were definitely on the border town between Bushwick and Ridgewood.
Correct. So you cross
Wow.
the street, you're in
You're in Ridgewood.
Queens, and yes, you cross
Yeah.
the street again, you're in Brooklyn. So it was, it was fun times. And then I was raised in Boston, Massachusetts, in Dorchester, and
Wait, how do you say that as with a
Oh yeah,
Boston
it's
accent?
Dorchester,
Dorchester.
Mass.
Okay, Dorchester. What happens to the R in Boston? It goes
No,
away.
we
What
just
is it?
we just decided it's just not necessary.
Yeah. She's like, R, you just
We just
rub it out.
We just rub it out. It's fine.
So how do you say something like eraser?
Eraser,
Eraser?
eraser.
Eraser. Oh man, this is cool. And everybody talks like that in Boston.
No, not everyone. Just people from the Southie.
Really?
Yeah, South Boston. People from South Boston talk like that. But
Oh, okay.
yeah,
Well,
I mean, sometimes it comes out.
they'll pick you out if you're not from the neighborhood.
Oh, yeah, they'll pick you out.
They'll say,
They'll
"Hey, listen, you're not from around here. You don't talk like us." So, Brooklyn, New York. You later went on to Boston, but
Right.
being here, there was something to do with bodegas. How did this come into your life?
Well, I was, my mom she didn't want to send me to DR, so every summer. So she said, well, just go to your aunt's in New York. So I would spend my summer vacations here. for years. I would say maybe 10, 12 years. I would come to and stay with my aunt. And so, just hanging out with my cousin, we would go out to bodegas. My uncle worked in bodegas. I remember the Italian icy,
Yeah.
the square pizza,
Wow.
back in the day. So, bodegas has been in my life for many, many years. My father, when he came here to the state, he worked in a bodega in Queens. So his uncle owned a bodega. And so, just growing up in there, it was just a place to go.
Everybody worked in bodegas, so it
Every
sounds like. So,
right.
did you work in a bodega?
Well, kind of. I was in charge of. I remember putting the
The price
pricing
gun.
with the price gun. Yeah, that
Yes.
thing was so heavy.
It was heavy back in those days, but let me tell you something. I was a quick shooter with that thing because
Oh,
I
really?
had to do. Was yours yellow?
Mine was orange. I think it was
Like a
orange.
yellow
Yeah,
orange.
like
it looked
a
like
yellow
it
orange.
looked like
Yes.
a weird Manila folder kind of
Right.
sort of color,
It
right?
was a weird color.
I listen. I was on that thing and I was like, chicka, 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 chicka. I got all the prices on there, and I remember sometimes my dad would be like, "That's the wrong price," or you were off by a decimal point or something like that, and he's like, "Do them all over again," and I was like, "Yes." My dad was a little pissed because he's like, "You know
Right.
how many stickers you wasted?"
You wasted all it. Did you ever like do a sticker, put it in your forehead?
Yes. So they would do the whole thing where you first of all,
Right.
you would take these things, you would stick them on your hand, right? And you'd be
Yes.
like, okay, do I get the price right? But then you want to go ahead and put it on like a can or something. And for some reason they start slipping off. So you start testing it. You're like, let me see if it sticks here. Let me.
Like,
And as a
exactly.
kid, I
Put
used
it in
to
your
stick it
forehead.
all over my.
Put it in my sister's forehead. Like
Yeah,
the
yeah.
things.
And it is funny. My dad had a guy working at the store, and I would go with the gun and just stick him on his back, and then you would stick it, but you hold it,
Right.
and you can pull off a bunch of tape, and it would keep
Remember
going. You remember that, right?
But those things were really hard to put in. Like if you wanted
Yeah.
to put the stickers back in, like
Yes.
the wheel thing, that was really hard to put
So
in. I
I would
remember.
compare it to today. If you guys want to know the pain and the struggle that we're going through, I would compare it to today when you are putting back the whiteout tape.
Oh
So
yes.
if you guys have a whiteout tape
Mhm.
and you're taking it apart, putting it back together, yeah, that's what
That's
happened.
how it is. Yeah.
That's how it is.
Yeah.
So let's go back. We're in Brooklyn. You're growing up there. You got this big, heavy influence of bodegas
Yeah.
all around you.
All around. Yeah.
You're working in the bodega.
Mhm.
Did you work with a cat next to you?
Oh boy, yes. It was an orange cat, very annoying. I remember putting the cans on the shelves,
Mm-hmm.
and I was terrified because the cat would disappear. Like cats they just like to play.
Yeah.
And then I remember putting some beans on the shelf, and then all of a sudden I see cat hand, like trying to grab me,
It's like coming out.
like
So
coming
so
out of, like,
so it
out of
comes out
nowhere.
like, what are you doing here?
Scared.
Well, listen, I personally remember working in the grocery store, having the whole cat situation. We had a black cat, but this guy had a job. Like he would go about, the store hunting,
Right.
all right, and then he'd leave these prized possessions right there, right in front of you at the grocery store. So my dad would open up and be like, "Oh, my cat's the best. Look what he did," and I would be grossed out. I'd be like, "What is it?" He's like, "No, you don't understand. We need to clean up at night, and this guy, does the job for us. Like he takes care of it." We also had a big dog.
Oh wow.
So yeah, so the dog and the cat actually got along.
Oh wow.
So the
Okay.
dog was like our backup to the alarm system.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah,
Security.
yeah.
That's
So
right.
he was
Yeah.
security. So he was in the back of the store the whole time in the yard, and then at night we'd bring him in, and he'd walk the whole store. Yeah, yeah.
Wow.
So I say it was a real family business.
It was, yes.
So when
Yeah.
I talk to people about like what is a bodega and it being a community hub, this is what I'm talking about, guys. The family's working and the pets are working. Am I right?
That's how working.
The pets are working in
That's
this
funny.
store. So there's a lot of things that we can talk about, obviously, with regards to bodegas and your upbringing. You have a connection to it.
Yes.
It's I mean it's present. You then move on to leaving to Boston. How did this occur? Because I'm Latino and I'm
Right.
not necessarily too fond of the cold. I
Right.
can
Yeah.
tolerate
Yeah.
it, but
Yeah.
Boston must be colder than it is here.
Oh yeah. It's much colder. My mom, I don't know what happened. My mom decided just to pack up and go to Boston. And we lived in a Latino community. So it's kind of like I never left New York because there were bodegas there who were Dominicans,
Yeah.
so it's kind of like I never left.
Oh
Same
wow.
food. It was just same, same bodega cat. But I just didn't work there.
Right.
And they were Dominicans, and they looked up for us. If we ever needed something, or if we didn't have enough money, we had the fiao,
The fiao, yes, the
the
credit
books.
lines. I remember that.
Yes.
Wow, wow. Listen, you know what? I love what you're mentioning right now. I think this is so important for people to understand the value that bodegas bring to the neighborhood because you don't have that today. With all the apps, the
Yeah.
Venmos,
Yeah.
the PayPals, all of this sort of stuff, you kind of forget where did it all start
Right.
and how did we do it back then? Wow. So listen,
That
I'm
is
gonna.
so true. We actually invented Vivian.
Yes,
Yeah.
let's go. Let's go. That's exactly what I'm talking about. As a matter of fact, guys,
Wow.
I'm going to come back with this here. We're going to pick this up right where we left off. Let's go to a quick break, and I'll see you guys soon.
De regreso con Anthony from the Neighborhood.
All right, so we're back from the break here, and if you guys haven't caught up with us before, then let me catch you up. We're talking about bodegas, the dogs, the cats, the price guns, all the fond memories, and we just got into something that was regarding credit. Evelyn,
Fiao.
do you remember that? Fiao?
Yes, I remember Fiao. I used to hate it. I really used to hate it. Like, mom, like, just give me the money. And she's like, no, no, dile que lo pone que yo lo pago después, like, and I would go like, okay, she wants a fiao, but, teenager,
Yeah,
want to be cool and have money.
right.
But, now I appreciate it,
Yeah, no, this is cool stuff because I think a lot of people would forget that, back then it was a lot of cash and carry.
Very good.
I don't think there was the financial instruments we have today. Definitely not the technology.
Right, right,
And you needed something and you were in a pinch. You didn't have the cash on you like right at that moment,
right.
but you could count that the store is gonna, provide for you, right? So this is an interesting thing. My dad had a bunch of receipts. So
The
yeah,
receipt
like
book?
he
Oh
would,
my goodness.
yes, he would literally hit the receipt machine like it pulled out, write a name,
Right.
and I'm gonna tell you folks, none of these names made any sense. Like it sort of looked like the person,
Right.
but it wasn't the actual person. Like, this guy's name was like Pedro Jose,
Uh-huh.
and all of a sudden his name is like, Papo. And you're like, how are you going to track down somebody by the name of
Name of
Papo?
Papo.
Yeah, so it would bug me out because I would say to myself like, how is it that we knew who these people were, and it's because they were regulars. Talk to me
They were
about the
regulars.
bodega as a
Yes.
community.
Yes. How do you store all those things?
Oh, by the way, there was Scotch tape all over the walls of the store. So like
Oh, that's
next to the
happy.
register, there was a
Right.
big wall, and they
Right.
were all taped there.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
How do you keep up with all
And
of
I don't even know. I don't know. He made it happen. I mean, but this is what I'm saying, and this is something that you know, I feel like it's become sort of your life's work.
Right. Yeah.
What people have identified you by is telling this story of bodegas, and we haven't even talked about the makeover part. But tell us more. How's the bodega been a community piece?
Like I said, it was a place where, and it still is, where, again, when you didn't have enough money, you had the fiao, and also it was also a bus stop for us too. When it was too cold to wait at the bus for the bus, especially in Boston. Boston gets really cold. We would go and wait inside the bodega to keep us warm. And I remember the bodega owner giving us, hot chocolate or some candy or some cookies. And also it's a place where if your mom wasn't home, you would know. The bodega owners would know. Oh yeah, your mom said, if you get here, she'll be back in 10 minutes. Just wait right there. Don't touch anything.
So this was fond memories of my own as well, and I remember that it also was a place for free air conditioning.
Oh yes.
So if it was too hot, then I would just go there and not really buy anything because some fridges were just straight open. So I was like literally just stand over it, especially like the ones that had maybe some fruits and vegetables,
right.
and the assortment wasn't much, which we'll get into on what's available in stores and what's not available. But I appreciate that you're doing this kind of work because, I also feel that for the small business owner, they can be left behind.
Very much.
They
Yeah.
can be forgotten, because they also are in a day-to-day grind, trying to provide for their community, keep up with now the technology, the apps,
Right.
the demands of the consumer, the
Right.
brands.
Yeah.
We're so health conscious, right? Not that we weren't eating well before. I think that, home food was always available and good stuff, by the way.
Right. But we when we were younger, right, there was such thing as healthy foods. We have the cultural relevant foods. We have the plátano, we have the yuca, the aguacate. We had fresh foods available to us, and I
Yes.
feel like throughout the years, things have bodegas have became sort of a place where you get mostly junk food.
Mm.
So the front of the store, where it was more welcoming, more of a fresh fruits and fresh vegetables, became more of a junk food heaven kind of thing.
Yeah, it's true. Well, I mean, interesting way to look at it because I also feel that, if we thought it was lacking, it was probably a supply chain situation as
Right,
well. Like
right.
what's available to the bodegas owners or what's in demand
Was in
or
demand, right?
expected
Right,
of the bodega owners to carry.
right.
So definitely like there's some tender spots here, where someone might say like, hey, if these people live here, then I'm going to provide them with these goods because this is what they want,
Right.
versus like maybe the bodega owner saying, listen, I've tried it, but they won't buy it, and I'm the one losing out with this product that no
It's a
one's
business.
purchasing.
Yeah.
So yeah, that delicate balance between being a business for the community, but yet profitable enough to
Right.
pay the rent,
Yes.
the employees, and so forth.
Right.
It's really tough. And most bodega owners, I mean, how was the one that your dad's worked at? Was it like a lot of employees, or who
I
held
think
it
it
down?
I think it was three total. I remember three. The owner, my dad, and I believe it was my uncle or his friend. And they would just hang around. If if the owner went to do some shopping, they would stock up. Or talk politics. Majority of the conversation is politics or sports,
Right,
but
right, right.
mostly politics. But yeah, it was again, like you said, a family community where if you come from Santo Domingo, and you want to, experience work, you'll start. Some majority of them will start at a bodega
Right, right, right.
to
That
gain the
was,
experience.
and I appreciate you saying that because we're talking about bodegas in different places. We're not saying a bodega, one state versus another. We're talking right here, and there's commonality. There's
Right.
a few people who run it. We mentioned the dog, we mentioned the cat, but it's also a 1 to 5 employee operation.
Right.
So these guys are really facing the small business challenges, right?
Very much.
What are some of the things that your parents faced, or do you remember them saying? Because you're a kid.
Right.
What's some of the things you heard them talk about when they were coming home from work?
You just, I think the finance piece, is just not enough. It wasn't enough money to keep above water. It was very small pay, you
Yeah,
know, because you're pretty much just standing there and you're doing the inventory or you're greeting people. But the pay wasn't, I remember my dad having a couple of jobs, and my mom too, working in the factory. Back then, New York was full of factories.
I remember that. Yes, all my
Yeah.
aunts too. They worked in factories as
Yes.
well. Yes, I remember that. I remember that.
And so they had a couple of jobs, so it's not it wasn't something that a place where you will sustain you, you
Mm,
know but
yeah.
it was something that felt like it was sort of their duty to
Yeah,
support
right,
the
right,
small
right.
business.
And
Yeah.
and and honestly, like we didn't have as much availability to food or even large supermarkets for
Right.
right. I think, I remember New York where it was the small guys who kept it together
Correct.
because a lot of the big guys, basically because of things that have occurred, left. And I think that we started to see a shift also in terms of like manufacturing and all of these kinds of jobs, and really the one that stayed behind
Right.
that you could land here tomorrow, from whatever country you came from, you could be here tomorrow and you'd be like, hey, I can work in a bodega,
Right.
right? Whereas other jobs, you're like, I need to start learning a skill. I need to know the language. The bodega was the place where if you spoke Spanish, people expected you not to speak English, right?
Correct.
They're like, why are
Oh,
you
broken
why are you
English.
speaking English? I just don't understand. I thought I walked into a bodega.
Look, so what is it? Where am I?
Well, great stuff there. Now, your mom, you got 2 kids, huh?
Yes, I have two kids. My son lives here now. He lives in he's Bed-Stuy.
Yeah.
And my daughter's 13, and she's with me in Boston. And she's my inspiration. That started this whole idea of Bodega Makeover.
That's cool. Wow. Listen, is she getting into the film production media
She's
business?
she's interested. She's definitely much interested.
Yeah.
I bring her everywhere pretty much. So when I'm on the set or something that I mean, when I did the makeover in Roxbury, she was with me pretty much
Wow. Okay.
every
Listen,
step of the way.
we need to get your daughter a price gun that looks like a camera. So that she walks around and she shoots each of your scenes.
Oh, that's a great idea.
Yeah, yeah. Listen, it just came up to me. I'm like, oh, what would be something that brings the two worlds together, right?
I love
And she's
that.
in a bodega. And it's disguised as a price gun, but
Right.
it's really a camera.
I mean, when we got here 2 days ago, she was like, "Mom, we have to. We're in Brooklyn. We have to go to a bodega."
How is that? Has bodegas changed a little bit?
I believe so. I think, I guess depending on where you are, right?
Mhm.
I've noticed, like you said, well, like I said earlier, the whole junk food type of thing. It's the same, the same kind of story where, it's the rent's too high or the pricing is too high,
Right.
because bread used to be very cheap back then. Now it's, even the essentials are very expensive, buying eggs, cheese, milk,
Yeah.
the
Right.
the essentials are very expensive.
Yes, yes. And in recent times, it's gotten like that. And like I go back to stressing that you're a mom of two, and kids have a way of changing you, just like times have a way of changing businesses.
Right.
And I want to get into that because there was an influence there that
Very much.
started this whole thing. So when we come back from this break right here, we're gonna hear about how the little ones made for this big move. We'll be right back.
De regreso con Anthony from the neighborhood.
All right, folks, we're back from the break here, and I've been having a great time here with my guest, Evelyn, in the house, and she has been doing an amazing job at this story that you're telling us about bodegas, its influence on your life. I'm really excited to hear more about it, specifically what you're doing. But I know this started much like you. We all started, and me. We all
Right.
started from something really, really small, like a tiny cell, right? And all of a sudden, here we are, sharing a story. Um, this little person, not so little anymore. I see her. She's a big girl now,
She's a big girl, yeah.
but she was an influence to you creating your program. So tell us, like, what was the wake up, that light bulb? How did it go off?
So before I get into that, I think that I want to start by saying that when we look at certain communities and some of the health issues that these communities have, like high blood pressure, diabetes, it also stems from what we eat, right, and the access of foods that we have in these bodegas. So we tend to I normalize it. I was normalizing it. I was like, well, this is just part of who I am. It's just this is the food that I'm supposed to be eating, right? So when I became a mom for the second time, I moved to this new community, and my daughter really loved peppers for
Are we
some
talking about
reason.
Dorchester?
Dorchester, yeah, I lived in a different part of Dorchester, Common Square, and so she just gravitated to vegetables. I mean, the red peppers was her favorite.
You had a kid that gravitated to vegetables?
Yes,
Wait
that
a
was a
second.
snack. She didn't want candy. She wanted red peppers.
Really?
Yes.
So you're talking about someone who loves carrots, spinach, broccoli.
No,
Like
she didn't like broccoli so much, but she loved the carrots and she liked the peppers and tomatoes, raw tomatoes,
raw
raw
tomatoes. Raw
tomatoes. She was like 3. She was 3. She
Wow.
loved it.
So you're in this neighborhood. How'd you go get it?
So I was in the process of moving everything inside, and then I'm like, okay, let's take a break and let's go get you some snacks. So, snack meaning peppers,
Yeah.
not chips or cookies. And so I would walk to the nearest bodega, and I didn't again. I walked in, chips, cookies, didn't see any vegetables. And then I would decided to walk 2 blocks down for another bodega, and I didn't see any vegetables. And then the third one, they had vegetables, but it
Mhm.
was rotten because the
Okay.
refrigeration was broken. Again, that's another issue that bodega
Yeah.
owner
Yeah.
have,
Hey, it's expensive
and
equipment, right?
expensive equipment.
Mhm.
So here I am with a 3-year-old. She's crying for peppers. I have to wait for the bus, and I have to take the bus to the supermarket to get her vegetables. And inside the bus, as I'm hearing her screaming and crying, I'm like, man, that bodega needed a makeover. Wait. The little light bulb
Wow.
came up, and I was like, wait, I know about bodegas. And I remember my film teacher saying, write what you know. And I'm like, well, this is what he means about write what you know. I know about bodegas. I can write about bodegas. So that's how it started.
Wow. So you're there, obviously a child, you're trying to get him some food. You realize that if the bodega was transformed, you wouldn't have to, first of all, go to three of them,
3.
take a bus
Yes.
to then get to a supermarket.
Yes.
This, especially for something that's a staple in the community, this can be a hurdle for a lot of people to just get good food. And like you said, making the poor food choices leads to all sorts of ailments,
Right.
right? Or diseases and things like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
that,
And I,
that,
and I realized we were normalizing. I was normalizing it because and then I started studying or looking up about what food desert was and food swamps. And I'm like, wait, I live in a food desert area and I didn't know what it was called back then.
right.
And then, then I started studying it more and making some food choices, some different food choices. So I actually changed my diet because of my daughter.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
interesting.
'Cause
Interesting.
she would eat the peppers, but I wouldn't. And then all of a sudden I started kind of studying, the food deserts and all the health issues, and then just having my mom have diabetes and then my aunt has diabetes. And it's like, and then making that connection. Like, why are these? It's because of the food.
Right, right, right. Well, a lot of food choices, that we make them unconsciously,
Unconsciously,
right?
yes.
We're programmed to say, okay, this is what I'm going to eat. This is what I've seen.
Right.
This is what I crave for. And it's a quick fix, right? Let me just stop whatever it's calling for it. Now, we also see that there's a lot of things here. It's not just a bodega getting a makeover, which, she was very influential. But we're talking about health now. We're talking about decisions in terms of like what to eat. We're talking about economies, local economies,
Right.
people's personal finance to, the infrastructure, maybe on like how to get from one place to another, right? You mentioned the bus. What
Right.
if they didn't have a bus route? What if the bus was too expensive? You say, you know what? I'll make the poor food choice because I
Right.
can't afford the bus just to go get the vegetables. Let
Right.
me just eat whatever's here. Let me satisfy whatever's got me urging for something. And little by little, it becomes the norm and starts getting you sick
You're gonna get
if
sick.
it's
Right.
not compatible with your body. So
Right.
I'm going to share something with you. So I'm gluten free,
Okay.
not by choice. So I learned that I actually have celiac.
Oh.
And I learned this several years ago. But all my life, I would have problems with wheat based products. So pastas, cereals, and there were cereals that I loved,
Right.
but I'd feel bloated. I'd get headaches. I'd have all sorts of issues, and I didn't understand why.
Mm.
And my mom was very much like, hey, have avena, you know,
Yes.
have, avena con pan, by the way, which was with bread, buttered bread,
Right.
and these sort of things would kind of knock me out. But yet I would feel super energized when I went out to say eat rice, right? Just white rice.
Right.
So I actually eat white rice before every baseball game. It was heavy, it held my stomach, and it didn't get me groggy. It didn't give me some weird pains or
Mhm.
headaches
Mhm.
and stuff like that. And I discovered that, and then I realized when I go to bodegas, I can't find anything that's not containing wheat products.
Yeah.
When I go to other stores, discount stores, not to name them, but we all know the spin-off to 99-cent stores and 99-cent stores included, which are kind of like a retail prepackaged bodega spot, if you
Right.
can
Yes.
say.
Yeah.
They also, everything is wheat based. So I know everybody has something. Nobody's perfect,
Right.
but undetected, it's just like generations and generations of suffering, and when you look at like pockets or communities, entire communities can have this sort of downward spiral
Right.
due to these food deserts that you were talking about.
Right. Yeah. And then we also assume that it's genetic too.
Mm,
With my mom being diabetic and then my aunts being diabetic, I'm like, it's just genetic. And it's also about educating yourself and asking the right questions to your doctor, and find out it's not generic. It's pretty much your food choices.
so yeah, you can be in a situation where you're basically just writing them off, you're like, oh, let's say for example, I hear this a lot in the news where they say, oh, Latinos and blacks are more prone to get this
Right.
disease,
Yeah.
and it's like, well, what are they, or where they live,
Right.
what's around them, because you do have to eat.
You
You
do
do
have
have
to
to
eat,
eat,
yes.
and we're no longer in the times of hunting for prey and very little availability of land for us to even plant our own food. So we're not back home
No.
trying to survive, let's say in el campo, right? Because I used to go there a lot when I was a kid. We're now in an urban environment, which, as I say when I go to Manhattan, this is a gasoline desert, right? There's no
Right.
fuel pumps, and if you want it, it's like twice the price as it is in Queens. So I try to fill up my tank in Queens
Yeah.
or in Jersey if I'm going to be a long time, in Manhattan, because I know there's no gasoline.
Right.
So that could happen with food.
In New York, it's in a lot of New York part. It's consider which I've learned this word is food swamps, meaning there's tons of food, but just
Food
not
swamps.
food swamps. So
Oh,
food
wow.
deserts
Okay.
is where you live 2 or 3 miles away from the supermarket, right?
Yes.
But food swamp is where you in community where there's lots of food options, but just not the right kind of food.
Ah,
So you have all
interesting.
these, sub shops and pizza shops and
Right, right.
Dunkin' Donuts and all these other places where, they're just not the right healthy
The
kind of
right
food,
options,
the right
exactly.
option. Yeah.
Wow. So your journey is not just like, hey, let's create something and make over bodegas. We're talking about, I mean, I can see so many different things. I can see, people laying out new city plans, so civic engineers, right? Or social economic
Right.
professors are going to be saying that this could be a case study for something. Is this what you were envisioning when your daughter just wanted peppers?
Yes. Harvard, call me.
That's a good one right there. Yes, let them know. As a matter of fact, shout out every school you want to call you
Harvard.
on that one. They need to know. That's the
Harvard's
lady.
closer, so Harvard, call me.
Well, listen, I think this is very valuable. We have a lot to cover here, folks. There is so much more that we have to talk about with regards to her work. I want you guys to stay tuned because we're going to come right back from a break. Evelyn, get ready because we're about to get into a makeover. Let's go.
De regreso con Anthony from the neighborhood.
Hey, so we're back from our break here, and we have Evelyn in the house. And Evelyn's been telling us her experience with bodegas, the makeover, the making of Bodega Makeover. And we talked about schools, Evelyn. We tapped on that, shouted out a couple of them that should be looking at you
Yes.
for some very interesting studies. Now, when we talk about how you got there, like, tell the viewers here, what kind of schooling did you have to go to get to be a filmmaker?
Well, the School of Hard Knocks. Come on. I'm from Brooklyn.
Let them know. Let them know.
No, I actually started as a hairdresser.
Wow.
Yeah, I went to hair school because, I was labeled dyslexic. I'm still dyslexic. I now it's my superpower. Um,
Wow. Define that for a moment. I want
yeah,
people to know because, like, I got into a little on the celiac, right? Because we were talking about food, but people don't understand what it is to have an ailment. And sometimes they have it and they don't even know they have it,
right.
right? So
Yeah.
talk about that.
Yeah, I think there's different types of dyslexia. Mine was, I would sort of see words pop up sometimes, or writing and reading was difficult for me. So I had to kind of work on that. So I applied for art school and I got a scholarship, but because my academic was so low, I was wanted, they wanted to put me in community school, community college. I was like, oh, I'm not going to community college.
Yeah.
And so my cousin was like, well, don't you just, come to New York, but just, I could just put you to work in the salon. And I was like, okay, I'll go to hair school. So I finished hair school and I would, volunteer to do movie sets. So I would do hair and makeup on movie sets.
Wow.
It's
Folks, listen,
independent work.
don't let anything hold you down because you've had quite a lot of press coverage on what you've been doing. And, now we have film schools that are interviewing you and trying to say, hey, how did you do this? I mean, you're here on the program as well, right? So something where someone tells you, hey, you're dyslexic, right? That would be
Dyslexic.
it.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh, won't stop you, because you said you're using it as a superpower. Get into that.
Yes. Yes. I mean, kind of, studied it, and there's a whole community out there, which I was blown away. Some famous people are dyslexia too. Whoopi Goldberg's one. Um,
Wow.
the guy that, oh my God, I'm blanking his name. He owns the Virgin cell phone and the airplane.
Richard Branson.
Richard Branson, yes.
Richard Branson. Yes.
Yes, yes, he's my idol. So I kind of learned about myself and what are the things what are my superpowers? Problem solving.
Yes.
Again, this whole makeover is the problem solving.
Yes.
Thinking outside the box and think of creatively. I use that as my superpower, and again, not letting that sort of hinder me, but also using the tools that I have. And technology was a huge help for me.
Yeah.
And so, again, going back to doing hair because I felt like, oh, well, I can't be an artist because I have dyslexia. So again, I let that hinder me.
Yeah.
And so I did hair and I was on a movie set. And then I saw this director who was yelling at the actors. And the set was messy, unorganized. In my dyslexia brain, I'm like, these things need to be like organized.
Yeah. Right.
And so I'm like, wow, I can do a better job. So I started kind of like learning a little bit about camera work and, the directing and the producing. And I spoke to a really good friend of mine and he was like, do you know that Boston Neighborhood Network have classes, you know?
Boston.
Yeah,
So you're in Boston
neighborhood.
at this time.
Yes, I was in Boston.
Okay, so you're in Boston. So this is later in life where you're no longer a kid.
Right.
This is college years.
College years, correct.
You figured, let me get a job in Boston, but what was it? Was it like public access? What kind of television was that?
It was it was like a training. It's like a public access, yes, public access
Okay.
television, and they teach you, it's free. They teach you how to do film work or studio work. So I
Right.
learned everything, and so I wanted to produce something. I didn't know what. I was looking at the lineup. Like, okay, I see churches, I see music videos. I'm like, man, this people need to laugh. So I would produce a comedy show called Boom TV,
Okay.
and I will follow comedians. I got to meet John Epps, John Witherspoon, Mike Epps. I'm sorry.
Yeah, yeah.
I met Dave Chappelle. I went to Foxwoods and recorded a few comedians. So
And these guys are on the come up at this point, right?
On the
Because we're
come
going back. We're going back just a few years, folks.
yes,
Just a
yeah,
few.
early 2000s.
Yeah. Listen, we're not that old, okay? But these guys had to start somewhere, just like
Right.
she did, right? You started somewhere, and here we are.
Exactly. Yeah. And
So,
I did everything. I did the editing,
Uh-huh.
I did the filming, I did the
Okay.
interviewing, I did, and I was again a young mom. I was in my 20s, and my son was probably 2, 3. And I was always dragging with me too. I would edit, and
Wow.
he would edit with me. Yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So this kind of thing, this is where you really start what your new career is going to be, right? No longer hairdresser. Everybody talks about going to LA, and I'm assuming you went to LA,
Yes.
right?
I
So
was
tell
one of
me a
them,
little
yeah.
bit about the life in LA, because we got New York, you got Boston, you go to LA. Was it culture shock, or was it this exposure that said, you know what, I'm gonna go ahead and produce my own thing?
Yeah, actually, yeah, LA was definitely a culture shock for me, for sure. The weather was nice.
I hear
weather
that
was
too.
really
Yeah,
nice,
I hear that too.
But it was so funny because I would go to a Latino restaurant and they would look at me like, "What kind of Latina are you?"
Ooh, yeah, it's
Are you
interesting when you stand out like the
brasileña?
exotic, right? Because, like for example, here in New York, right? They're like, oh, I see you all the time, right?
Right.
Like you're like I don't know,
A rare
you're like a
breed.
Jenny from the block.
Who
I s-
are you?
I seen you plenty of times. Forget about it. But in LA, you stood out.
I said, yeah.
How about like your look on life, East Coast, and your upbringing? Was it different than, say, your colleagues?
My upbringing, you mean in LA?
And no, in New York, and then being in LA and like looking at stories and developing in the arts, was that upbringing different? How was it helpful?
I try not to look at it that way. I try to look at the similarities,
Mm,
and not the differences. And I've noticed a lot of similarities to Mexican culture and Dominican culture. So I saw a lot of that similarity. My My
I love that. I love that because a
yeah,
lot of times people go the other way around, and I think that even in the differences, there's that beauty. You know what I mean?
mhm,
And as subtle as they are, or as vast as they could be, it's almost like, but wait a second, we're still breathing air, right?
right.
We're
Exactly.
all bound by gravity. Oh wow, you know,
So
that's nice.
my aunt husband's from Guatemala.
Uh,
So I, learned about Guatemalan food. And then my aunt spoke Guatemalan, and it was kind of weird to me
the
because she's
dialect,
Dominican.
right?
Yeah, the dialect, yes. And then my cousins were like half, like Dominican and Guatemalan. And, so it was just like, that's the culture shock for me. Like, wow, because I'm so used to like Dominican cousins or Dominicans
Yes,
and Puerto Rican, but
yes.
Dominican Guatemalan, it's like, whoa, it's,
Favorite food, Guatemalan food. Did you have a favorite?
oh, no, I didn't. But I remember my uncle tried to put little spices or little because he know I could eat like hot peppers.
Yeah.
So he would try to sneak some of the peppers, Guatemalan
For
peppers in the food just to see my reaction. He was a
wow.
little prankster. But yeah, I don't remember, but I know like it was very tasty. And I would go to Guatemalan restaurants in LA.
Wow,
Yeah,
wow.
yeah,
Well,
yeah.
so we're in LA, we're getting exposed, and I want people to kind of put themselves in your shoes, right? Because this is the reason we get into this is not only for them to get an idea of who their neighbor is, but also to say like, you know what, I can see a path forward for me. Maybe I am living in Boston, or maybe I am in New York,
Mhm.
and I'm afraid to go to LA. I don't know what to expect. You went there,
Yeah.
you associated yourself in a space where it gave you the opportunity to express your art. You had basically a learning difficulty, didn't let that hold you back. You
Mhm.
found a space for it, an area where you could express it. Now expressing it as a superpower. I'm very interested to hear more about this. And I'm going to come back from a quick break right now because we are going to leave this towards the end. This is how Bodega Makeover gets put together, folks. Do not move right now. We're going to come right back here, and Bodega Makeover is what we're going to talk about. See you soon.
De regreso con Anthony from the neighborhood.
So we're back on the program here, and if you guys have been thinking about a dream that you have and you just don't know where to connect yourself with, and you're afraid to leave your house, and you're saying, you know what, the world is so big out there, I don't know what to do. Well, my guest here has done it, and she's developing her program. Evelyn Brito cracked the code on like your trip to LA and connecting with people and saying, "Hey, this is my community, right?
Right.
I can express my artwork."
Absolutely. Not only expressing your artwork, but also like I learned about what is it I wanted to do.
Mm,
Because my major was producing. I know I wanted to do that. And then my minor was cinematography. Because, I did camera work for the comedy show. And then I quickly realized that I'm not a cinematographer. This is
That's
very
expensive, isn't it?
expensive.
Yeah, I was
Yes.
gonna say.
How much does this cost?
Yeah, yeah.
So
Wow.
I was thinking as a producer, even though I was dealing with camera, and I was like, okay, this is it. But
Yeah.
I kind of learned the language
Hmm.
and some of the things that, needs to happen to shoot something. I don't remember much now, but I realized that I wanted to produce. So I
Right.
kind of discovered what I wanted to do.
So just get into the mix of something, and then you're gonna kind of find your space in it. A lot of kids out there, they're just like, hey, scrolling through the Instagram. They're like just on the phone, and whatever gets fed by, let's say, the algorithm.
Right.
What do you tell these kids when you were at a time that none of this existed, and if you wanted to get something, you had to get like this big fat book.
I remember that.
Folks, this was called the Occupational Outlook Handbook. That's what I remember from high school. And it was like the list of all the occupations and what these jobs were all about.
Right.
And then you would hope and pray that this job matches. I mean, now we have all these personality quizzes and job matching services. What do you tell kids now that they're saying to themselves, I don't know what I want to do, and I don't know where I really fit?
I said, again, just be a kid, explore, try new things.
Get
And
off the
see
phone.
Yeah, get off the phone.
Get off the phone. Like
Yeah.
right now, folks. Drop the phone, pick up a book, get outside, do something different.
Yes, go outside. I remember we couldn't go out. We couldn't go back inside the house until it was dark out.
Yes.
Yeah.
They didn't want you in the house.
You want
They were
you
like,
in the
get
house.
out. Get, what are you doing here? You're here too early.
Right. Yeah. So I would say go out and explore, try new things, try to see what you like
Right.
and what you don't like. Sometimes it can be a hybrid thing. There's some people who just like to be produced, but also like to edit. There's producers who like to write. So, find out, never stick to one thing.
Right.
For me, I like to produce and I also like to write. So find out what your thing is, but don't pigeonhole yourself to that specific thing because
Tell,
sometimes it
talk to the
can.
kid. Tell him right in his eyes,
Yes.
right there. Tell him to his face. Be like, "Mommy's talking to you. Mommy has a message for
Explore.
you. Listen to her."
Explore, find out what you like, what you don't like, and sometimes the things that you may like, you may not like some parts of it, but that's fine. That's just life. There are things that, I like to be in my bed all the time, but I can't. I have to get up and brush my teeth and do work thing, but I would love to just snuggle in my bed in my
Yeah.
blanket. But
Yeah.
there are things that you may like on something and may not like on
There
certain
you go.
things.
There you go. Sound advice. Mommy's always right too. Mommy's right, and she's a mom of two. So your kids are blessed to have you. And you came across an organization which you said was very helpful for you in creating this. May we know who they are?
Yeah, when I was in LA, I volunteered with an organization called NALIP, which is the National Associations of Latinos Independent Producers. I know it's a long name.
NALIP.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. And you should join. They have a chapter here in New York, but also find out, just Google it to see if there's a chapter in your town. But, they were very helpful. They really focus on Latino representation. I think we need them more than ever. I'm just like so grateful to have John Leguizamo, Eva, all these, Fanny Grande, who's working on, and advocating for Latino representation in
Wow.
Hollywood.
Yeah.
And I think that we need more advocate, and we need more organizations like NALIP that supports Latino content.
All right, I love that. And you mentioned some pretty big names and folks who grew up here. I mean, John Leguizamo, Jackson Heights.
Yes.
By the way, he used to come to our store.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
I didn't
I,
think I really.
anytime I've ever seen him, I'll tell him that. But he only used to buy a quart of milk, and that's it.
That's it.
That's it. You come in for a quart of milk, and then it's like, "Hey, John, how you doing? What's up?" And it'd be like a few words. But he was super friendly,
Right.
really nice guy, super low key. And then he'd just leave. And most times he would just come on a scooter. Before the motorized scooters, he would just
Right,
be
right,
a scooter or something like that, or a skateboard. Can't remember. But yeah, he was super cool. And that's folks here in New York. You could start right here. Because if that organization exists here where there's a chapter, you can start going to some events, and you said volunteering.
Volunteer.
Volunteering.
Create your village. Find out even if NALIP is not an option, there are definitely others.
Right.
Nonprofit or even form your own organization. In Boston, we started SSBC, which is the Secret Society of Black Creatives, because Vladimir, who's the founder of SSBC, found that there is a lack of diversity representation in Boston in the film industry. So four of us got together and we created this organization, and to provide resources and events that really reflect us as filmmakers.
Oh, I love that. I love that. That's really, really cool. So now you pitched your show, right? And this is where we're going into the makeover. So thank you for establishing the grounds for it, because now you pitch your show and it gets some validation, and then you go on this expedition. And let's just go into the show. Let's just hear all
Okay.
about it.
Well, when I got the idea, right, and I started kind of studying food deserts and food swamps or whatever, and I'm like, oh my God, this is great. So I created the pitch deck, I packaged it, put a little pink bow on it, and took it to Hollywood.
Yes.
Part of this NALI program, which is like a speed, not a speed dating, but a speed, kind of like a speed dating, but speed pitching.
Right.
So you would pitch to different type of networks. And, the feedback that I received is it's a great concept, but it was missing something. So I think they were looking for like a novela.
Okay.
They wanted like a novela
The
and
drama.
a bodega.
Give me the
Yeah,
drama.
there was no drama. And I said to myself, okay, I could look at it this two ways. I can say I don't have an idea, or I can say I have an idea and nobody knows what to do with it. This is a challenging project.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. Exactly.
So it's all about your perspective, right?
Okay.
It's all about how you see it. And I saw this as a challenge. And also I took the what do you call it? The community's validation, like the community's like, yes, we want this here.
Hmm.
So I kind of push Hollywood type of comments away and
Okay.
listen to what the community wanted.
Right.
So I
Right.
just stuck with it. And I just kept perfecting it years after. It took me about 6 years to get actually do the first makeover
Yeah,
in
yeah.
Roxbury.
Having patience, and then in the time that you did the first makeover, you hit the stumbling block,
Yes.
which I think many of us have hit this stumbling block because we were all on Earth. Fortunately, we're talking about COVID.
Yes.
COVID came along and kind of was a hiccup to your first makeover, right? The first bodega you wanted to make over, supply chain issues, spacing between people.
Yes, it was.
So even though you're being patient, you had to pull out an extra ounce of patience
Too
during that
much.
time, right?
Think outside the box, just kind of like pivot. I think we all had to pivot during those times. And so, I count on my community. I went to my community and says, okay, what should I do? What does the community want? So instead of me making an assumption like the community want this, they want mangoes, yuca, they want this. I did a survey. So I did a survey and find out what the community needed during that time. And the result was kind of shocking. It wasn't like, I want aguacate or whatever. The result was we want to go healthy to go products or healthy
Healthy
to
to
go.
go products,
Yeah, so like
packaged stuff that they
packaged
could.
stuff or like
Interesting.
ready soup,
Hmm.
sandwiches, smoothies. So like wow, what a difference from what I thought the community wanted
Interesting. Yeah, yeah,
from
yeah.
what the community told me they wanted. And so I listened to that.
So how did you do this? You do this like through surveys. Let's say someone who's starting up a project, should they be going out and like hunting and saying, "Hey, what do you want? What do you want?" Just to figure out what to build a show on?
Absolutely, because they live there day to day. I'm just a visitor. Even
Mm,
though I grew up in that neighborhood, I don't live there anymore, but I'm just a visitor. And I don't know what the community needs until I ask them, right?
right.
And that actually motivated us to think creatively as far as design, too, because we actually did, before the pandemic, we did a block party where we invited the community to come in and look at the drawings, architect drawings, and then give us their insights.
On how to make over a bodega.
How
So,
to make over a
so
bodega.
give me the premise or the plot line on Bodega Makeover. What is Bodega Makeover? If I'm going through my TV guide, right? By the way, bodegas had TV guides.
I was like, no,
Yes,
he didn't go there.
bodegas had TV guides. There were these books. They'd come out every week. You'd buy them, and they were like this thick, and they'd had all the listings, right? But if I was scrolling through whatever guide there is for television now, what would I see for a description of Bodega Makeover?
So Bodega Makeover is a series that provides store improvement and healthy eating options.
Store improvement
And
and
healthy
healthy
eating
eating
options.
options.
Yeah.
So I can see a lot of people benefiting from this, right? I can see a lot of a lot like the bodega owner maybe doesn't know of stuff and they get to improve their business. The community gets products that they were probably looking for. And how does this translate to some of these people who are these brands that don't even know bodega owners exist?
My
What does it
goodness.
mean to them to be in these communities?
You mean the brands itself?
Yes.
Oh my God, it's a huge opportunity. It's actually a huge miss. That they need to call me right away.
Give her a call. Yes.
Please call me.
So
Uh,
let them know because a lot of times we're forgetting about the little guy.
right, absolutely. I think that bodegas and bodega owners have the insights. They have the insights of what's going on, like you said, what's going on in the neighborhood. But I think there's a missing piece here too. I think that nonprofit organizations or community organizations around the area should connect with the bodega owners to say, okay, what does the community need,
Mm,
and then collaborate with that, because the bodega owner knows who's who in the community, but
right.
not necessarily know what they actually want. I think that's a
Wow.
big piece that the bodega owner needs to kind of understand.
Yeah, I need to get into this further. I really appreciate that. And I'm sure you're connected to bodega people. I'm going to pick your brain for our next guest because I think I want to talk to somebody in the bodega space. You know somebody?
I know somebody.
You know somebody.
Yeah,
I got a guy.
I got a guy.
I think I need to speak to somebody in the bodega space that can really give us some insight from their perspective as an owner because we're talking about education all the way around. Brands having awareness of the demographics they're serving, the areas they're serving, people having awareness of better food options and what services stores are can provide for them, these stores. And bodegueros, right? Bodegueros, what can they do for their community and how can they better manage a business?
Correct. Yes. I mean, because a lot of bodega owners they want to do well. They want to provide healthy options, but again, they need the tools.
Right.
Like the survey. Like the bodega owner would not have thought of that.
Correct. Correct. No, they're
I
too busy. I mean,
They're
it's
too
also
busy.
it's a
Right.
lot going on in a
Right.
bodega.
So
Yeah.
again, it takes a village. It's I always encourage nonprofit organizations or community organizations that really focus on, healthy options or education to really get themselves involved
Right.
in their bodegas because, it's kind of like they know what's happening, which
Correct.
way they might not know.
Correct. Wow, I really appreciate that. Thanks for the insight on that. So there you go, folks. Bodega Makeover. How do you know about Bodega Makeover? You're gonna reach out to Evelyn Brito. You're gonna go to her website. Go ahead and plug in your website. Let people know where to find you.
Yes, they can. You go to my Keep It Simple Productions. I know it's long, but that's my website. There you can see the trailer and you can see other works that I've done as well as a producer.
So Keep It Simple Productions. That's where you're gonna know all that's happening with Bodega Makeover. Are you focusing on any specific town, any specific area that you guys are going over? Are you looking for bodegas? What is it that you need to continue this going?
I need stories. So if you have an uncle, if you have, an abuelita that has the abuelitas have bodegas, that needs a makeover or has a great story, please send it my way. I need stories.
Okay, so there you go. Keep It Simple Productions. Reach out, and through there, they can also send you what it is that they have as a bodega that
Correct.
may need a makeover. Well, I've got a question here that's gonna be
Oh
something
boy.
that I don't know what it is. It's a little box here. It's a mystery question. I don't know what the
Ooh.
question's gonna be, but what I do with this is that I try to get something that I didn't ask, right? That
Okay.
wasn't on the topic, and be it as random as possible. So these are cards and questions that I've already asked, so here in the front, and these are the ones that I haven't asked yet. So here we go. Ready?
All right. All right. I'm
Your
prepared.
question:
Boy.
how is your family different from other families? There you go.
How is my family different
I don't know if
from
you want to start with the
other
abuelita or the tío, the tia.
family? I don't know.
Any interesting traditions or anything like that?
Oh, it's like I know there's a lot of, Latino traditions and it's like, oh, you have to pass it on to your kids, I think I don't know if my kids are different from any other family. I think that they make up their own traditions and I'm
Mhm.
okay with that.
Yeah.
They don't have to my story is my story and they have to develop their stories and
Right.
experience their stories. But my kids both are very proud to be Dominicans. So I think that I did a good job.
Yeah. So which one likes bachata more?
I think my son, no, actually my daughter. I think she likes Romeo Santos.
Oh,
Yeah, she does like
la
Romeo Santos.
bachatera.
Yeah.
Well, it's been a pleasure having you on the
Oh yes,
program.
this was fun. Thank you so
This
much.
this is an opportunity for you folks to get to know who is your neighbor and be more closer with your community and be more in touch with the people who are there out there working and developing things. And Evelyn is one of them. She's right here, completely accessible through her website, Keep It Simple Productions, and she can be in your community helping change a store. There was a lot of lessons here, Evelyn. A lessons which all of it I felt were in humility. Like they were just humble, homegrown stories of you as a kid. And, I think that, first of all, you were super brave in being vulnerable and expressing, something that many people would take as a setback, and you did not. So I really appreciate you being out here and doing that thing.
Thank you. It's good to be back. It's good to be back home to Brooklyn.
Yes, Brooklyn represent. Right.
Woo!
Guys, thank you so much. This has been a phenomenal program. I've had a great time here with Evelyn. And until next time, I'll be seeing you back in the neighborhood.